The first flaw we are going to cover starts in boot camp: training. We do see in the films that the mobile infantry recruits do face harsh training practices. The Federation forces even make pushes to lure the more talented students in the Federation to fight for them. But overall, MI training is not overly specialized. And more importantly, it often doesn't start at a young age like the great soldiers of history and lore. We see many recruits joining the mobile infantry as young adults, as is common in modern Western armies. To create true sociopathic killing machines, Space Marine recruits need to be trained young and not be raised in a bubble where they experience suburban education. Because many of the soldiers in the mobile infantry start their careers so late, they aren't desensitized to violence or the darkness of war. Instead, we see emotional, mentally weak soldiers. The mobile infantry experiences fear in the face of the enemy and weak stomachs at the gore of battle. We certainly cannot compare their training and preparedness to special forces like the Halo ODST. And that is exactly why this happens. Harsh life lesson. Yeah, she's gonna be just fine. Listen, I'm going to say this early on here. In many ways, the average mobile infantry soldier from the Starship Trooper films is simply unfit to deal with the harshness of war, because technology and society has advanced to the point where life is pretty good, aside from giant alien bugs threatening to wipe out the entire human race. The next flaw is a lack of discipline in the ranks. The mobile infantry is just not a very impressively organized fighting force. Soldiers openly cavort with infantry of the opposite sex and engage in hooligans with little repercussion. This might seem humane, but it's weakness in the face of bug scum. Juan Rico pretty much does whatever he wants in the films. He doesn't act like a leader committed absolutely to the defeat of aliens. When his lieutenant catches him engaged in human intercourse on the job, he gives him more time to screw around before moving out to respond to a distress call. That's not a fighting force that believes in a humanity-first doctrine and is seriously committed to defeating a superior bug force. Sure, there's some disciplining. Captain Dip gets flogged for getting a fellow soldier killed, but the rules of the mobile infantry seem inconsistent and sloppy at best. I mean, guys and girls shower together in the mobile infantry. What kind of ridiculous oversight is that? This is a corps of soldiers that is just as much threatened by disarray in its ranks as it is by killer arachnids. If the bugs don't get them, me too will. Up next, we have battle gear. Now, a lot of you in the know are going to say, actually, the mobile infantry gear is exactly what sets them apart from other space forces. After all, their powered suits, as devised by author Robert Heinlein, was foundational in the field of futuristic military fiction. And we are going to discuss that as an advantage in our next video. But for this video, as the powered suits are mostly absent from much of the Starship Troopers film franchise, we are going to look at the standard mobile infantry gear in this video. And such gear doesn't differ much from what we see available to modern-day SWAT teams or armies. Mobile infantry soldiers in the films are equipped with a helmet, thin body armor, gloves, and combat boots. This would be fine if the mobile infantry was deployed against human enemies, but they're not. They have to fight aliens. And their armor clearly does little to stop soldiers from being impaled by the bugs or having limbs bitten off. One would think a futuristic army that lives in a world of ubiquitous advanced tech would have designed armor that was capable of protecting its soldiers against the enemy. Of course, it's possible that the United Citizen Federation's leaders are just giant a-holes who don't think the cost to protecting each and every soldier is worth it. Okay, I stand corrected. That's a giant a-hole. Naturally, next we have to cover weaponry. The standard weapons used by the mobile infantry are the Merida Assault Rifle, the Merida 2 Assault Rifle, the E-Pulse 44 Rifle, the Merida 3 Assault Rifle, combat knives, the E-Pulse 88 Rifle, rocket launchers, and tactical oxygen nukes. The nukes we will list as an advantage and talk about in the next video. As for the rest of these weapons, well, they are fairly advanced in practical terms and can be effective in combating the arachnids if a mobile infantry soldier has good enough aim to hit the nerve stem. However, none of these weapons are that impressive or provide the mobile infantry with a significant advantage over the bugs. And while most of their guns are akin to modern-day firearms, they're actually bigger and clunkier than modern-day weapons and provide a huge disadvantage in close-quarters combat with giant alien bugs. The ammunition in these firearms isn't even that much different than the ammunition used in standard firearms today. The bullets they use are simply not made for defeating bugs. Our next flaw is tactics. The mobile infantry, along with their lack of discipline, has poor battlefield strategy. In other words, the inferiority of their weapons is only compounded by their crappy tactics. Once again, the mobile infantry's tactics are more suited for human-on-human warfare, something that is largely a thing of the past in Starship Troopers. Following the meteor attack on Buenos Aires, the United Citizen Federation launched an attack on Klendathu, the bug's home planet. The results were devastating for the mobile infantry. The plan was to have Federation forces swarm and assault the planet en masse. After securing the initial beachhead, the forces would spread out and eliminate any bugs in their path. The plan ultimately backfired due to the Federation's arrogance and abysmal strategy. In antiquated fashion, they lacked artillery or air support and relied on numbers. They tried to engage in a war of attrition. The poor planning resulted in hundreds of thousands of casualties among the mobile infantry, including 100,000 killed in 1 hour alone. Don't get me wrong, I am proud that humanity stood together as one, #for Argentina. But the answer to an attack on Earth is not to send 500,000 mobile infantry on a suicide mission. This leads us into our next flaw: poor governmental structure. Human society in Starship Troopers is governed by a military elite following the collapse of 20th century Western democracies. The world is still rife with affluence as far as we can see, and technological advancement has led to a higher quality of life. However, while ordinary civilians are generally free, they don't enjoy the same rights or status as military members. Governmental leadership positions are reserved for the veterans, and thus military-minded people set the path of society. As we see in any society governed by a military elite, juntas never end well because they fail to understand the need for restraint on militaristic behavior or a balance of ideas in government. This manifests in a United Citizen Federation with a mobile infantry run amok. With war-hungry soldiers at the helm, lieutenants don't hesitate to commit violence against infantry in training or place much value on the lives of their soldiers. Hardening soldiers for war is one thing. Throwing a knife through a recruit's hand and disabling him is moronic. The mobile infantry badly needs the oversight of more politically inclined individuals. The next flaw is that the mobile infantry is a volunteer force. Now this is both a weakness and a strength. For today's video, we will consider the aspects that make it a flaw. In the Federation, one chooses to join the military, but doing so is the only way to become a citizen. So there are incentives to do so. Still, the lack of compulsion means that the mobile infantry cannot force the most talented humans among the populace to fight for them. On the flip side, this means that the mobile infantry is going to have to settle for the best soldiers they can get, like Juan Rico, a complete putz. I mean, he gets a fellow soldier killed by taking off his helmet during a live fire simulation. Yes, Captain Dip just called for a medic despite the fact that the soldier doesn't have a head. This highlights maybe the most major flaw of the mobile infantry. Its main hero is inept. He has no specialty, no elite skills, and isn't that intelligent. Whereas many elite soldier forces are defined by a heroic figurehead like Master Chief, the mobile infantry is stuck with Johnny, it's that time of the month Rico. He almost quits the mobile infantry, a force he only joined because of a girl due to the helmet incident. This is an intensely weak-minded person who will go on to become a general. Such is reflective of a very flawed professional ladder. Next, we have the mobile infantry transport vehicles. In the film Starship Troopers, the main vehicle used for space travel by the UCF is the Corvette transport. The Corvettes were often used to deploy dropships which carried mobile infantry platoons. The Corvettes are fast, but along with the dropships they transport, seem to have weak defenses and lack much in the way of offensive combat capabilities. The Corvette dropships suffered heavy casualties during the first Bug Wars and were easily brought down by the bugs during the first Battle of Clendathu. Again, the transport vehicles available to the mobile infantry don't seem suited for battle against the alien enemy they're fighting. And finally, our last flaw should be rather obvious. Despite the mobile infantry existing in a world of advanced technology, as we've previously discussed, they largely fight the gigantic bugs on foot. They don't use much in the way of an air force or ground vehicles, and in the films don't have exoskeleton suits that give them enhanced abilities in warfare. This seems almost ludicrous, yet the lack of an alternate means of engaging the enemy is a catastrophic flaw. In other words, there is a degree to which the mobile infantry is at a technological disadvantage. Okay, citizens, it's time to vote. Click right up here in the left-hand corner and rate the mobile infantry on a scale of 1 to 5. You will have another chance to rate the mobile infantry after my next video highlighting their positive aspects. And if you haven't seen Alan's video on clone trooper flaws yet, please check that out and vote there as well. And stay tuned for Alan's next video, which covers the advantages of clone troopers. For now, my friends, remember Argentina, obliterate the aliens, and humanity first. I'll catch you next time. Generation Films, peace.